Hello everyone, it's Marnie coming to you from the future. Before we get into today's video, I just wanted to say this was filmed before the announcement was made around North Melbourne's leadership group for 2025 and Simpkin being appointed sole captain of North Melbourne. So any comments that reference him as a co-captain, just keep that in mind while you're watching this video. Anyway, enjoy! Hello everyone, welcome back to Kanka TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome to the next episode of my player preview series for season 2025. If you haven't watched the first two videos as part of this series, I would recommend doing so first. It'll help provide a bit of context and understanding as to what this series is all about. So the first episode is the most crucial episode of the lot. It helps set the scene for the entire series. That is me attempting to put together my best 23 for North Melbourne in season 2025. I've made that side in a utopian society when every single player is fit and ready for selection come round one. Watch that video first. In the next few videos, I'm going to be breaking down the selections, the players that were featured in each part of the ground, a little bit about the season ahead for them and what they produced last year and what we can expect or hope to expect from them in season 2025. And then the last video of this series will be discussing the rest, discussing some players that will be in conversation and in frame for selection during season 2025 and how they could possibly fit into this side. So first episode is the team. Second episode are the defenders. Today I'm doing the forwards. I did toy with the idea of putting the forwards and the midfielders together, as I think we'll see a lot of rotation throughout season 2025. I think Larkey really values versatility in his players, particularly in the forward and mid roles. But then I started to get into the nitty-gritty of our forward line, and there is so much to unpack. We're saving the mids for another episode. This is forward talk for North Melbourne in season 2025. Let's get straight into it. I know I did just mention versatility and a lot of players being able to play in multiple positions, but obviously there are a few exceptions to the rule, and the biggest exception in our forward line is Larkey. He is our key forward. He is our number one man down there. It's a really interesting season for Larkey. I think that 2024 was quite a good season for him. It was his second best season in front of goals. He kicked almost 50 goals in the season, but he was backing it up from his best ever All-Australian year in 2023 when he kicked over 70 goals, 9 goals in that last game against the Gold Coast Suns, makes the All-Australian side, etc., etc. Really stamped himself on the competition as not only one of the best forwards in the league, but also internally in the inner sanctum at North Melbourne, he really emerged as a key figure and a key leader in season 2024. And I think in terms of that, it's going to continue for him in season 2025. I think the acquisition of Jack Darling will hopefully really help Larkey's game and will really help him improve, because I think it alleviates a little bit of pressure off him and what he maybe needs to do. Maybe we won't look for him as often moving into the forward line. We do have some more options now, so it'll allow him to play a little bit more free. Like I said, on paper, Larkey's 2024 was pretty good. 46 goals. It's the second best season he's ever produced, aside from the All-Australian season. And I know he had to back up his best ever year, and it was probably going to be underwhelming in the grand scheme of things. But he also had 4 games where he was held goalless. One of those games was the Melbourne game at the MCG in round 15. We all know the script of that game. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it's all well and good. Had he been able to get his hands on the ball and kick a couple of goals, would that result have been a little bit different? Well, I mean, I guess we'll never know. We can only really move on from what we've got and look ahead to next season. I do really expect Larkey to have a big year. I think the support that he's finally got with Jack Darling, it's the first time in a long time he's had a genuine support, a genuine second key forward playing alongside him that'll really help him just be a bit freer and probably play just with a little bit more, lack of pressure, and just he can share the load finally and genuinely share the load. Also, Bryn Taker will have a full preseason under his belt. They would have had some time to play together, figure out each other's styles. It makes our forward line less predictable and a little bit more dangerous, I think, having those options, and it allows Larkey to run into his own space and kind of make the forward line his own. No doubt he's still going to receive attention. He is the best forward in our forward line, no doubt, but hopefully it does sort of allow him to let go of a little bit of frustration and, like I said, just play with a little bit more freedom. So I'm really, really excited to see what Larkey can do in season 2025. I think I've said that I'm excited about so many players and the potential and just for this team in general, but it is a really exciting time at North Melbourne, and I understand I probably need to work on my vocabulary a little bit, and I will do that as these videos go on, I promise, but it is really hard not to be excited. And I think for someone like Larkey, he really does have the opportunity to have another big year. Like I said, if his second best season, what we just saw in 2024, then imagine what he's going to be able to do in 2025. I think there's a big year in store for our Silver. Let's move on to the man who could unlock potential for not just Nick Larkey, but the rest of our forward line, Jack Darling. I think there was a lot of controversy around his recruitment. There was a lot of question marks, and we did decide to bring him across from the Eagles at 32 years of age. He is approaching the end of his career, but what he's been able to do, not just over the duration of his career, but in the last few seasons for West Coast's forward line as a whole, I think is something that we could really benefit off. And with so many young up-and-coming developing players, they could really lean on Jack Darling and really use his skill set to help themselves flourish. A lot of people do link the development of Jake Waterman and Oscar Allen at West Coast back to Jack Darling and the work that he did, particularly the defensive work that he's done in West Coast's forward 50. He averaged 2.9 tackles a game last season. I'm pretty sure he was the number one player for tackles inside the forward 50 for season 2024. That is something that we desperately need in this side, because one of our key weaknesses in our forward line is that we are unable to retain the ball in our forward line. If there's a kick that goes inside our forward 50, either an opposition player marks it, or if it does fall to ground, it comes to ground easily and it is walked back out without not much pressure at all, and the opposition is on their way down the other end. Someone like Jack Darling adding that extra level of pressure, adding the pressure acts and the tackling, that's really going to help our forward line as a whole, and that's really going to allow us to retain the ball inside our forward 50 and hopefully create more scoring opportunities for us. Jack Darling, though, himself, he still had a good season on paper last year. He still kicked 20 odd goals in addition to this defensive role that he's kind of undertaken, and he, like I said, he does the groundwork, and it allows the other forwards around him to get their hands on the ball, and they're the ones kicking, and they're the ones kicking the goals, and they're the ones creating opportunities. It's on the back of a lot of his work. He's also an incredible physical presence. Not only can he compete really well for the ball in the air, but he can take attention away from the likes of Larkey or a Zurhaar, like I mentioned before. I think what he is able to do for our team as a whole is underrated and undervalued, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he's able to impact our side. And I think Jack Darling's success won't be measured on what Jack Darling brings to the side. It's what Nick Larkey can do in 2025. It's what Paul Curtis can do in 2025. It's what Zurhaar can do in 2025. It is rumours that he has been pinch hitting in the ruck for Tristan Sherry during the preseason training, so potentially that is a move that we will look to make, and that could change the dynamic of our forward line once again. I mentioned Bryn Teagle in my best 23 video. I would personally play him. But does it open the door for a likes of Zane Dersma to have another shot at the big time? If Sherry's rucking, Darling's pinch hitting, and then it allows Dersma to come in and he adds that real athletic ability in our forward line. He's got that great vertical leap. He's exciting. He's got that X factor. It adds to the other excitement factors that we already have as part of this team. I feel like Jack Darling just unlocks a bunch of opportunities and a few new options that we probably haven't had for quite some time. So I really like this recruitment, and I'm really big on Jack Darling. I know a lot of people probably aren't there with me, and that's totally okay, but I would encourage people to, when they're assessing the success of Jack Darling and assessing how his recruitment has worked for us, I wouldn't just focus on what he's going to be doing. I'm going to be focusing on the players around him, and are they better and are they walking taller because of the work that he's doing. I think that's going to be a real measurement of the success of the recruitment and the decision to bring him through the doors to Arden Street. So we already expect Nick Larkey to benefit from the recruitment of Jack Darling. I think Paul Curtis is going to be just the same. He's the one I've tipped for a massive breakout year in season 2025. I've also tipped him for my leading goal scorer for North in 2025. And you know what? I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that's out of the question. Every single year, Paul Curtis is adding something new to his game. It's crazy to think that he's only 21 years old and he's heading into his fourth season of AFL football, because he really is just getting better and better as the years go on. At the start of 2024, I wasn't so sure about him. I left him out of my best 23. I just said that the gap between his best and worst was too big for me to secure him a spot in the best 23. Well, how much can change in 12 months. He has completely transformed his game. He was our best pressure forward in season 2024. He was the second best tackling forward inside the forward 50. So now we do have the best 1-2 punch in terms of defensive forwards in the competition. But not only was he able to tackle, not only was he be able to do that work at the ground level, but he also kicked 30 goals. That's almost double what he had in season 2023. And he's only going to get better. For me, Paul Curtis is an X-factor player. He doesn't need a lot of the ball to make magic happen. And I really feel like he is just going to give us yet another dimension in that forward line. He is good in front of goal. He's really tightened up his game in front of goal, and he's having an impact. He's added that tackling and that pressure element to his game in season 2024. Now for the next step in season 2025, there's rumours that he's going to be mixing it in the midfield, part of that rotation. We do need a bigger body in there. Luke Urquhart, who we did recruit in the 2024 draft, might not be ready straight off the bat, but I think that giving PC a little bit of time to go through the middle of the ground, is that bigger frame. He's obviously hungry for the ball. It just gives us a different look in there. And it's one of those things with North where we don't know how the games are going to go. We are obviously all really excited and we expect ourselves to be more competitive, but the reality is for long periods of time, the ball didn't come into our forward 50 or into our attacking half at all at parts of games in season 2024. So maybe just to give him an opportunity to get his hands dirty and to get him around the ball and to get him involved in the game is something that might really benefit him as well. So I can't wait to see Paul Curtis in the midfield a little bit. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he takes the next step in his game. There are so many opportunities for Paul Curtis, I think, in season 2025, and I think he can make this year anything he wants to. I really feel like he's just becoming such a versatile player. He's becoming such an important player right before our eyes because he's consistently finding ways to improve his game. If it's not in front of goal, it's tackling. If it's not tackling, it's defensive efforts and pressure, and it's the 1%ers. If it's not those, he's in the gym setting new bench press records at Arden Street. So he's really doing everything he can, head down, bum up, really committed to the grind, and it's really paying off for him. So I really feel like he's putting himself in the frame and he's giving himself more opportunities. Now he's just got to take them. I really believe he's going to do it in season 2025. I think this is going to be a huge year for Paul Curtis. Speaking of X Factor, let's talk about our other medium-sized forward, Cam Zurhaar, and it is no surprise he is under quite a lot of pressure heading into season 2025. We know what he can do at his very best, but we know that on the other end of the scale, he can just go missing for big portions of time. I'm not just talking one game or two, I'm talking weeks on end. It is quite frustrating because A, we know what he can do, we know what he's capable of, and we are a forward line that does need a little bit of intensity. We do need a bit of creative flair, we do need a bit of spark and a bit of spunk, and he is the guy who can do it. He just doesn't do it often enough. He has done it in dribs and drabs throughout his whole career. I don't know if the contract talk was hanging over his head for most of last season. Did that impact his game at all? Did the outside noise impact his game at all? I'm not 100% sure, but I'm hoping that now that he's committed to the club long term, everyone knows he's committed to the club long term, hopefully that confidence, that mutual confidence can only benefit him, and hopefully that means that he can just forget, he can drown out the external noise and just focus on playing footy. On paper, his numbers were actually pretty good in season 2024. He still kicked 29 goals. Paul Curtis kicked 30, so in that respect, he actually did have quite a good season. I don't know, maybe part of it is also us just changing our expectation of Cam Zurhaar. I think we've always viewed him as being a bit of a goal sneak, a bit of an opportunistic sort of goal scorer, and so often we've probably seen him try and take it on himself and he just hasn't been able to execute the ball. We did see him transition into this more unselfish player in season, probably late 2023, and then again in season 2024. He's sort of become more of a playmaker, and he's the one sort of delivering the ball into the forward 50. He's the one that's passing the ball off. He's the one that's setting up passages of play and kind of being that link. And maybe with that, we need to sort of adjust our expectation a little bit. But I think Cam Zurhaar is a player that just needs to be able to do whatever he wants. And I know that sounds ridiculous because it hasn't paid off for us at times. Like I said, there's been times where he's taken it upon himself to kick goals and do bits and pieces and he just hasn't looked anywhere near it. But I do think that when he is able to play with that creative freedom, that is when he is at his best. That is when he does look his most dangerous. Now we've just got to work on the execution. It would be a real shame if we were unable to get a consistent brand of footy from him, and maybe the way that he plays doesn't allow him to consistently deliver this heightened, exciting brand of football, but at the very least we want him to be able to contribute in some way, shape or form around the ground. I really loved when he went into the middle of the ground at different parts this season. Like I said, it allowed him to just get his hands on the footy and get him involved with the game. Maybe he is more of that confidence player and he needs to kind of be in the action constantly. I know Paul Curtis might go through the midfield. I'd love to see Cam Zurhaar do the same. At times he looks unstoppable. You don't get the nickname the Bull for nothing. So now it's time to let those horns come out and sort of just let him have at it. I really think this is a big year for Cam Zurhaar, and I don't want to harp on again because it is something that we have spoken about time and time again. His need to deliver, his need to stand up, his need to sort of show us why we have committed to him long term. It's all well and good that, you know, we wanted to offer him a contract. It's all well and good that he wanted the long-term contract from North, but now maybe he needs to start repaying us and the faith that we had in him and start to deliver on a more consistent basis and at that high level consistently. Rounding out my forward selections, and it's two players who I think are also under pressure for different reasons. It's Luke Parker and Jai Simpkin. Let's start with Jai Simpkin, co-captain. Had a bit of a rough start to season 2024. Obviously was knocked out in that practice match against St Kilda. He didn't play round 1 against the Giants. He came back for round 2 against Fremantle. Played most of the season. He did have a chunk of footy where he did miss. I sort of feel for Jai. I'm not sure how much of that impacted his season. He did come out against the Eagles in Perth and just set the tone from the very, very beginning. And that's why I like having captains on the field in the center of the play from the get-go every single game where possible. I really feel like he set the tone for that game and he was absolutely explosive from the second the ball bounced and the second the ball hit the deck, and was our best on ground by a long, long way. But unfortunately, that performance, it's something that we need to see on a more consistent basis from Jai, and that actually ended up being the exception. He was really, really good against Hawthorn in the last round, but when your side's getting pumped by over 100 points, it kind of just gets forgotten, and we moved on from it. So I think Jai really, really needs to restamp himself on the game in season 2025. He did, as a junior, play that sort of high half forward role, and I think that floating between the forward line and through the midfield will really benefit him. Hopefully that allows him to, again, get his hands on the footy a little bit more, be that link in the chain between the midfields and the forwards, move forward, kick a few goals. He is a pretty good kick for goal. He did kick a few goals across the season. I just think we really need that leadership from him, and I think we really need him to leave 2024 behind him. Like I said, I don't know how much of the hit in the preseason and then the interruption in the middle of the season impacted his game. He was excellent against West Coast, but we did need more than just that one amazing performance, because if we just hold on to the one performance, then we're never going to be able to improve as a side. So I think he's under pressure for that reason. I think Luke Parker's also under pressure in a weird way. He was sort of our high-prize recruit, the excitement and the fanfare that surrounded Luke Parker when he did come over to North. And it was basically when the rumours started in the middle of last season, all until he officially made his way over to North an hour before the end of the trade deadline. He really needs to also deliver. And the onus isn't just on him, but we have brought him in because of his leadership, because of his experience, and we acknowledged that we didn't have enough of it internally and we had to move externally. And we know the sort of player that he is. He's a high caliber player. He's a premiership player. He was the Swans' best player in the 2024 grand final. He kicked 3 goals, and while the game was well and truly over before he had a stamp on the game, he did really work hard until the very end. Rather than dropping his head, he wanted to leave an impact on that game, and he did. So I just think that for him, there's a different kind of pressure. It's the pressure. He is a beacon of light and he is a real factor of hope for a lot of North fans. I think our ability to attract him, our ability to bring him over, I think all of those things in the eyes of North fans is probably really well respected and it's a really admired thing. But now you need to deliver on the promise and the expectation, I guess, that fans would probably have. It is up to you to sort of steer the ship, because that's what you were brought in to do. And I understand he's a new player, but he's been a very good player for a very, very long time at a very, very successful football club. So he's got all the attributes that we need to implement into our own programs and our own system to make us successful too. And if he can't do that, particularly on field, and show some leadership, then I feel like that's a little bit of a problem as well. I don't want to put this sort of pressure on him early, but on the flip side, he is such an experienced player and he would know that he's got that responsibility. So I really just hope he takes it with both hands. Luke Parker will play most of his game time in the forward line. He will rotate through the middle a little bit, but I would expect it to be like a 70-30 split. Think it's a big job for him. I think he's got a lot of responsibility, and I think he, along with Simpkin, along with Darling, and along with Luke McDonald, who we spoke about last video, they've all really got to come together and lift as a unit and inspire the side. I back him in to do it because he seems really excited and really rejuvenated in the way he's spoken about North. He seems really excited too. He almost seems like a kid in a candy store. But deliver now. Just, you've got to step up and you've got to do it. One key thing missing from my forward line is a genuine small forward. It is a real problem that North have had, and it's exposing a problem that we've had for quite some time. We often go to the draft and we recruit based on best available rather than recruiting on our needs. For me, at the moment, there isn't a standout small forward that I would automatically slot straight into the side come round one. I think Zach Fisher has been training up forward, and he's probably the player I would expect to fill that role maybe at first. Robert Hansen Jr. did have a really good fortnight to finish off the season. He was sort of my one standout player across those two horrific games against the Bulldogs and Hawthorn. We've also got Cooper Harvey and Jacob Constanti. Braden George can also potentially be thrown into that conversation, but none of them right now for me stand out as a player that should be selected if fit and ready to go in round one. In terms of the makeup of the side, it leaves us a little bit unbalanced, but that's why we've got Simpkin and that's why we've got Parker in there for now. I think they're going to be the guys that are going to have to do the job. Paul Curtis might need to play a little bit smaller as well, and it's really just having that goal sense. We also know our forwards, a lot of them will rotate through the forward. Harry Sheasel will probably push forward a little bit. We know Tom Powell's got a great foot on him as well. So it really is just about trying to find a way around that positional issue for now. Structurally, it's not too bad. We've got Parker, we've got Jai Simpkin, but I would hope that if we can't find a small forward in amongst the players that we've got at the moment by the end of season 2025 as a lock, then we really need to prioritise bringing in a small forward, be it from another club or going to the draft before season 2026. It is a big issue for us. We haven't really had a genuine opportunistic small forward since the likes of a Lindsay Thomas or a Patch Adams and even Boomer later in his career. It has been quite some time. Jaden Stevenson did show signs of it, but he retired. He's lost the love for the game. We've had the likes of Kane Turner come through and Jack Marnie. I mean, Phoenix Spicer, none of these guys have been able to live up to the player that we kind of need them to be. So that's the one thing that I can acknowledge in my best 23 that we're missing. And the reason why I haven't put anyone in that small forward position right now is I just don't feel like any of them have screamed selection to me at this point, but I would love to be proven wrong more than anybody else. And I'm really hoping that there is someone that can step up to the plate as the season goes on. Well, there you have it, my assessment of the forward line. There's a little bit of reasoning as to why I've picked all of these players in my best 23 and a little glimpse into what we can potentially expect from them, what we hope to expect from them in season 2025. What are your thoughts on our best 23 and our forward line heading into season 2025? Leave all of your comments down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Kanga TV for more Kanga content, especially as we are getting closer to the AFL season. You can keep the conversation going over on socials. We're now on Facebook, which is super exciting, but also on Instagram and X, Kanga TV Show. I will see you in my next video.